Everything's packed. I'll call your Uber now. I stood frozen on the porch, the cold Christmas Eve air slicing my face like a blade. Through the glass door, I saw Stephanie standing in the middle of the living room, my suitcase already packed beside her, her face as impassive as if she were just waiting for a package delivery. There was no embarrassment in her eyes, just a cold certainty that I was a problem to be solved. I looked at Chris, my youngest, the boy I'd rocked to sleep so many nights, who used to cry when I left for work, who begged me for Christmas French toast even when it wasn't the holidays. Now he stood there, 38, a grown man, his gaze fixed on anything but me, as he ushered me out of his own home on Christmas Eve. Of all nights. But son, it's Christmas Eve. How am I supposed to get there now? And all my things are already here. The food I prepared. My voice was a thin whisper, the lump in my throat a raw knot threatening to choke me. I swallowed hard. At 67, after raising 3 kids on my own, I refused to beg to stay. Mom, I explained. Stephanie's parents brought her aunts and uncles. We simply don't have the space. He glanced at his watch. The Uber should be here any minute. When the car pulled up to the curb, Chris grabbed my suitcase and walked me to the sidewalk. He gave me a quick kiss on the forehead, like someone checking off a chore. We'll talk later, Mom. Merry Christmas. I got into the car, clutching a bag with the Christmas French toast I'd made that morning. The driver pulled away, and in the rearview mirror, I watched my son's silhouette shrink until it disappeared as we turned the corner. It was only then that the tears came, silent, streaming down my wrinkled face. You're probably wondering how a mother reaches this point. How a son, raised with every fiber of your being, can simply cast you aside like old furniture that no longer fits the decor. Let me tell you how it all began. My name is Susan. I'm 67, and I've always been the kind of mom who put her kids first, no matter the cost. I raised Chris and his 2 older siblings practically alone after my husband passed away when Chris was just 8. I worked 2 jobs to give them the best I could. It wasn't much, but it was enough so they never went without. Chris was always the most attached to me. While the other 2 left home early to study in other cities, he stayed. He got his business degree at the local college and started working at a bank. There was a simple wardrobe and a nightstand. I thought I'd be in the guest room, I commented, trying to mask my disappointment. Oh, we're expecting my parents tomorrow, Susan. They'll be in the main guest room, Stephanie explained. This one is more practical for longer stays. When Chris finally appeared, I tried not to show my disappointment. He looked tired, but he smiled when he saw me and gave me a quick hug. Glad you made it, Mom. Sorry I wasn't here to greet you. Work's been a madhouse this holiday season. It's okay, son. I'm just happy to be here. And I was, despite everything. Being with my youngest for Christmas was what mattered, not the room I'd sleep in. On the second day, I woke up early, as I always did. The house was still quiet. I went to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast. Homemade cheese biscuits, which Chris had loved since he was a kid. While the dough rested, I decided to start the preparations for Christmas dinner. I took out the special ingredients I'd brought from my suitcase. The pecans for the savory dressing, the spices for the turkey, the cinnamon sticks for the Christmas French toast. I was so engrossed that I didn't notice Stephanie enter the kitchen until I heard her voice behind me. Susan, you're up so early. I turned, smiling. Good morning, dear. Just making some breakfast and getting a head start on dinner. Stephanie looked at the counter where I'd spread out flour, eggs, and various containers. "Oh, you really needn't have bothered," she said, her voice perfectly controlled. "We've already ordered everything for dinner. A catering company is delivering it already made on Christmas Eve." I felt a squeeze in my chest. Catering? But I thought we'd have a homemade dinner, like we always do. "Chris and I prefer it this way now. It's more practical, and the food is excellent. Gourmet, you know?" She paused, looking at the mess I'd made. "Besides, I'm on a restrictive diet. Gluten-free, dairy-free." "Oh, I see." I tried to mask my disappointment. "But maybe I could still make some of the traditional recipes. The Christmas French toast Chris always loved. The savory dressing with raisins." Stephanie crossed her arms, her face hardening slightly. "Susan, we've already ordered everything for dinner. You really needn't have bothered," she repeated more firmly. "Besides, Chris's tastes have changed. Now we prefer a more contemporary dinner." That word, contemporary, sounded like a sentence. As if my traditions, my recipes, my way of showing love were too old-fashioned for their new world. "Of course, dear. I just thought." My voice failed. "Well, maybe I could just make the Christmas French toast as an extra dessert." Something in her gaze softened, perhaps out of pity. "All right, the French toast can stay. But please, try to keep the kitchen tidy. The cleaning service isn't due until after Christmas." She left, and I stood there, feeling like an intruder. I looked at my flour-dusted hands, and for a moment, thought about giving up. But then I remembered Chris's face as a child, the joy in his eyes when I brought the platter of Christmas French toast to the table. I decided to continue. Over the next 2 days, I tried to make myself useful without being a nuisance. I cleaned up after myself, stayed in my room when Stephanie's parents arrived, and smiled politely when they introduced me as Chris's mom. I noticed how spacious their room was, with a king-size bed and a view of the garden. I swallowed the lump in my throat and carried on. On Christmas Eve morning, I went out into the garden for some fresh air. That's when I saw Stephanie on the phone, pacing back and forth on the manicured lawn. Yes, she's still here. No, I haven't been able to make her see reason. Just call Chris then. When she saw me, she quickly hung up and forced a smile. "Good morning, Susan. Sleep well?" "Yes, dear. Just admiring the garden." I went back inside with a knot in my stomach. Something was wrong. I could feel it. A few hours later, Chris called me to talk on the porch. And that's how I found myself in that Uber on Christmas Eve, with a bag of Christmas French toast on my lap and a broken heart. The driver, an older gentleman with kind gray eyes, caught my reflection in the rearview mirror as I tried to stem the flow. "You all right, ma'am?" I couldn't answer. He pulled the car over at a gas station, bought a bottle of water, and offered it to me. His name was Robert. He was 70, and he'd been driving for Uber since he retired as an accountant. "Where are you headed, ma'am?" "My son told me to go to my Aunt Brenda's house, but she doesn't even know I'm coming. We barely speak, truth be told." Robert thought for a moment, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. "Look, I don't mean to pry, but you seem like you need company today. Not more rejection. There's a group of seniors having a community potluck at the center. They're all good people. Would you consider coming with me? I'd be alone tonight, too. My daughter moved to Canada last year." I looked at that kind stranger, with deep wrinkles around his eyes and a sincere smile. In any other circumstance, I would have politely declined. But that night, the thought of spending Christmas alone in a taxi, or worse, showing up unannounced at a distant relative's house, felt unbearable. Are you sure I wouldn't be imposing? Absolutely. In fact, you'd be doing me a favor. I always make more desserts than I should, and no one ever eats it all. Your Christmas French toast will be more than welcome. As we headed towards the senior center, Robert told me about his life. The wife he'd lost to cancer 8 years ago, the only daughter who'd built a career abroad, the friends he'd made in the seniors group. At first, I just went to pass the time, he explained. But I ended up finding a new family there. People who understand what it's like to reach our age and feel disposable. That word, disposable, echoed inside me. It was exactly how I felt, as if my whole life, all my love, all the sacrifices I'd made for my children could be packed into a suitcase and shipped off when they became inconvenient. We're here, Robert announced, pulling up in front of a community hall decorated with colorful lights. Shall we go in? I promise no one will ask too many questions. We're all experts at respecting each other's space. I hesitated for a moment, the bag of Christmas French toast on my lap like a last link to the family I thought I had. Then I took a deep breath and opened the car door. Let's go, I said, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. I guess it's time to meet new people. Little did I know that night, which began with a painful expulsion, would open doors I never imagined existed. And that the surprise waiting for Stephanie and my son would be very different from anything any of us could predict. But that's a story for another time. That night, when I walked into the community hall with Robert, I was met with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. The place was simply decorated, but there was something genuine about it. Handmade garlands, a modest Christmas tree full of colorful ornaments, and tables arranged in a U-shape, covered with red tablecloths. Everyone, this is Susan. Robert introduced me to a group of about 20 people, all in their 60s and 70s. She brought homemade Christmas French toast. A woman with white hair pulled back in a bun approached, smiling. French toast. It's been years since I've had real homemade French toast. I'm Eleanor. Welcome to our little haven. I placed my Christmas French toast on the dessert table, next to cakes, puddings, and trifles. Looking at that simple food, made with care, I felt a lump in my throat thinking about the contemporary catered spread that would be served at my son's house. First time away from family for Christmas? Eleanor asked, offering me a glass of wine. I nodded, unable to elaborate. She squeezed my arm gently. You don't have to tell us anything you don't want to. Everyone here has experienced some kind of abandonment. It's practically a membership requirement. She smiled, not with pity, just understanding. During dinner, I sat between Robert and a woman named Dorothy, who'd been a literature teacher for 40 years. The food was simple, a traditional turkey, cornbread stuffing, and even some rice with raisins. But each dish had been prepared by someone from the group, carrying stories and traditions. This cornbread stuffing is my grandmother's recipe, explained a man named Arthur. No one in the family wanted to learn how to make it. They say it's too much work. But here, there's always someone who appreciates it. As we ate, the stories flowed. They weren't laments, as I'd feared, but accounts of lives rich in experiences, punctuated by laughter and reflection. At one point, when desserts were served, my Christmas French toast was met with genuine praise. Now this is real French toast, Dorothy said, closing her eyes as she chewed. Reminds me of my mother. It was then that the tears finally came. Not from sadness, but from a deep recognition. Here, among strangers, my traditions were valued. My effort was seen. Eleanor noticed and held my hand across the table. "It's okay, dear. Sometimes we have to lose something to find something else." I remember vividly the Christmas when Chris was 10. It was the second Christmas without my husband, and I was determined to make it special, despite our financial difficulties. I'd scrimped for months to buy him a used video game. Nothing like the expensive gifts his friends flaunted. But it was all I could offer. On Christmas Eve, after the kids were asleep, I stayed up late wrapping his present and getting the Christmas dinner ready. In the early morning, I woke up to a weight on the bed. It was Chris, eyes wide in the dim light. "Mom, I can't sleep," he whispered. "I keep thinking about Dad." I opened my arms and he snuggled against me, like he used to when he was smaller. "I think about him too, honey." "Do you think he'll see us opening presents tomorrow?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm sure he will. He'll always be watching over you." We were silent for a moment until he spoke again, his voice small in the darkness. "Mom, I don't need a present. We can use the money for something else." My heart ached. "Why are you saying that, honey?" "Because I heard you talking to Aunt Brenda about how tight things were. I don't want you to worry." I hugged him tighter, silent tears streaming down my face. "Don't you worry about that, my love. Mom always finds a way. Always." The next morning, when he opened the video game, his eyes shone like they hadn't in a long time. He hugged me so tight we almost fell over. "It's the best present ever, Mom. Thank you. Thank you." That night, after our simple but plentiful dinner, he sat beside me on the couch while his siblings played in the living room. "Mom?" "Yes, honey?" "When I grow up, I'm gonna buy you a big house with a huge kitchen for making your Christmas French toast." I smiled and kissed his forehead. "I don't need a big house, honey. I just need you to be happy." "But I want to give you nice things," he insisted, "because you deserve it." That childish promise stayed etched in my heart for years, and in a way, he kept it. He graduated, secured a good job, bought a big house. Just not one with a place for me. After that Christmas night at the community hall, I returned to my apartment with a lighter heart than I expected. Eleanor had given me her number. "We're a group that meets every week. Come get to know us." The next day, I got a text from Chris. "Mom, how was Aunt Brenda's? I tried calling you." I didn't respond immediately. For the first time, I felt like I didn't owe anyone an explanation about my whereabouts. It was a strange, almost liberating feeling. 2 days later, he called. "Mom, are you all right? We're worried." "I'm doing great, honey," I replied with a calm that surprised even me. "In fact, I had a wonderful Christmas." "At Aunt Brenda's?" I hesitated for a moment. "No, honey, I wasn't at Aunt Brenda's." Silence on the other end. Then, "What do you mean? Where did you spend Christmas?" "With new friends, people who appreciated my Christmas French toast." More silence. I could almost feel his discomfort through the phone. "Mom, look, about Christmas Eve. It was a complicated situation. Stephanie was stressed with her parents coming and... You don't need to explain, Chris. I understand." "You understand?" "Yes. I understand your wife doesn't want me around, and you chose her side. That's fine. You're an adult. You have your own family now." "It's not like that, Mom. You're being unfair." I took a deep breath. "Maybe. But you know what I learned this Christmas? That I don't need to shrink myself to fit into lives where I'm not valued. Not even for my own son. He was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom, I'm so sorry. Really. Can we talk in person? I want to explain what happened better. Of course, honey. But not right now. I have plans in a bit. Plans? With who? I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. With my photography group. We're learning about natural light. After that, I'm grabbing coffee with Eleanor and Dorothy. Who are these people, Mom? My new friends, Chris. People I met when you sent me away on Christmas Eve. The following week, I accepted Eleanor's invitation and went to meet the group. I discovered they weren't just retirees gathering to pass the time. They were active people, involved in community projects, art classes, group trips. Mark taught basic accounting to low-income youth. Dorothy ran a book club at the municipal library. Eleanor, at 72, had just returned from a backpacking trip through the Northeast. It's never too late to start something new, she told me as she showed me photos of her adventures. When my husband died and my kids moved out, I thought my life was over. I spent 2 years waiting for calls that rarely came, visits that were shorter and shorter, until I realized I'm still alive. I can still make memories. Her words lit something up inside me. That same week, I signed up for a beginner's photography class. Something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the time for. I started going to the volunteer group Mark coordinated, helping young people get their finances in order. Little by little, my days, which used to feel so empty, started to fill with purpose. About a month after Christmas, Chris showed up at my apartment without warning. That Christmas night showed me I have value beyond just being your mother. That I can build meaningful connections. That I can learn new things. That my life didn't end just because my kids grew up. I showed him some of the photos I'd taken in my classes. Told him about the volunteer group. About my new friends. I told him about the trip we were planning to a cozy cabin by the lake next month. You seem happy, he said, a strange mix of relief and sadness in his voice. I am, son. More than I've been in a long time. Before he left, he gave me a long hug. Can I come visit you more often? Meet your friends, maybe? Of course you can. But call first. I have a busy schedule now. He laughed, but his eyes were watery. Fair enough. Love you, Mom. Love you too, son. Always. 3 months after Christmas, I got an unexpected call from Stephanie. Susan? It's Stephanie. Her voice sounded different, less controlled, more vulnerable. Hello, Stephanie. How are you? Not so great, actually. I was wondering if we could talk. In person. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. When I got there, she was already there, nervously stirring her cup of tea. She looked like she'd lost weight, and her normally cool eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. Thanks for coming, she said when I sat down. What happened, Stephanie? You look upset. She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. I came to apologize. For Christmas. For how I've treated you all these years. For everything. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. My parents, they're divorcing. After 35 years. Her voice faltered. I found out my dad has had another family for over a decade. A woman, 2 teenage kids. No one knew. I'm so sorry, Stephanie. The worst part isn't even that. It's realizing my whole life was built on a lie. This perfect image I had of my family. This desperate need to impress, to keep up appearances. She wiped away a tear. You know what my mom told me? that she always knew about the other family, that she stayed for convenience, for status, for the money, and she expected me to do the same, should it ever happen to me. I reached across and lightly touched her hand. When you showed up at our house with your homemade recipes, your stories, your simple way of showing love, I panicked. It was everything my mother taught me to despise, yet deep down, it was everything I secretly envied. You envied my simple life? She nodded, tears streaming freely now. The authenticity, the real love for your children, not as extensions of your ego, but as people. The ability to find joy in the little things. She paused. When we sent you away that night, something broke between Chris and me. He never looked at me the same way again. And rightly so. We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the coffee shop around us. Stephanie, we all make mistakes. We're all shaped by our family histories, by the examples we had. Can you forgive me? I looked at that young woman, broken down by pain, finally facing her own truths. I already have Stephanie. The question is, can you forgive yourself and start over? She looked at me, surprised. Like you did? Yes. Sometimes we have to lose something to find something else. That's what happened to me that Christmas. Before we said goodbye, she made an unexpected request. Susan, could you teach me how to make that Christmas French toast? The real kind, like the one you brought that day? I smiled, feeling a strange sense of coming full circle. Of course, Stephanie. Anytime you like. Today, 6 months after that Christmas that changed everything, my life is unrecognizably different. I have a close-knit group of friends, a calendar full of activities that bring me joy, and I've even started selling my photographs at local craft fairs. Chris and Stephanie are working on their marriage, with its ups and downs. He comes to visit regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes with her. Last week, Stephanie came over to learn how to make Brazilian cheese bread. She said she wants to preserve Chris's family traditions, to create their own. When my son calls now, begging me to visit because he misses me, it's often me who says my schedule is full. Not out of revenge or resentment, but because it really is. And when I go to their house, I stay in the main guest room. A small, symbolic change that means a lot. The last time I was there, I noticed one of my photographs framed on the living room wall. A sunset I captured during an excursion with Eleanor's group. Next to it, an old photo. Me in the kitchen of our small house, making my Christmas French toast, with little Chris beside me, smiling with his face smeared with sugar. Stephanie found that photo in my old albums. Chris explained. She said she wanted to remember where we came from, what really matters. Sometimes when I'm with my new friends, sharing stories and laughs, I think about that Christmas night. About the sharp pain I felt being rejected by my own son. The humiliation of being cast out like an inconvenience. And I realized that, paradoxically, it was the best gift I could have ever received. Because sometimes what looks like rejection is just destiny redirecting you. And now, at 67, I finally understand that my life doesn't have to revolve around those who don't value me, even if it's my own son. That it's never too late to start over, to find new connections, new purposes, new joys. The surprise Stephanie didn't expect was that by pushing me out, she freed me to find my own life. And in that process, perhaps she freed herself too. Today, when I look back, I no longer see that night as a painful expulsion, but as the first step of an unexpected journey. A journey that led me not just back to my family, but back to myself. And that, perhaps, is the greatest surprise of all.